Okay, this is my review of the first edition Mega Squirt Pro 3 that Token Solutions had that Sean had. That's the bulky one. He has the smaller weatherproof one now that has the newer firmware on it. And I'll firm up what version of firmware I received it with and what I had to update the firmware with on the actual controller before things kind of started clicking. So that was one thing working against me most of the spring and summer. Once I got that done, the newer Tuner Studio software and everything just really kind of came into its own. So, and I'll give you the specs of my car too. The one challenge that I have is the plug and play. My thick used to be bolted on up here, so I'm going to clean this up and patch when it's not cold, but make it look better than just duct tape. The plug and play wiring harness is very, very bulky. So you have to cut a hole in the back to bring it out and then probably put some loom on it. It's a lot of wire. So just be forewarned on that you'll probably have to modify something to get it into the stock ECU. As far as plugging it in, it was super easy. So I mean, it's just literally plug, you're done. Then it does come in a nice loom. So I ran that channel right down here, right behind the fender. And then right there under the slave master cylinder, I cut a hole in the boot, and the parallel cables, or like the 20-pin cables that it comes with, you kind of have to bend them at like a 90-degree angle to get it through the firewall. To be honest, that was the most difficult part of installing the whole ECU, was just getting those cables through the firewall. There's no way to unhook the brackets without having to restrand all of them. I didn't want to do that, but with some slicing and dicing, I was able to get it to the firewall, and then I sealed up the firewall with like some great stuff just to keep water and condensation out. That first Mega Squirt Edition box was not weatherproof, and it was very large, so I wanted to mount it inside. So I mounted it inside the cab, which brings me to the other challenge. Let's see if I can get some light in here. You may not be able to see it because it's dark, but right to the left of my clutch, there's not a lot of room underneath there, especially with the clutch, and I didn't want any of the wire or loom to get in the way, so I moved the three-part, the footrest. I moved that footrest out of the way and velcroed my stock, or the Mega Squirt unit right there. It does kind of get in the way. I'll move it eventually, but for right now, I mean, for a year I've had it there and it hasn't gotten in the way or anything or fallen off. The USB cable then just kind of goes down around the channel underneath the driver's seat, and then over there to my old XP laptop, which is my tuner laptop. I use the AEM Yugo wideband, and then I use just a boost controller is a Greddy Profect 2, and then Pro Sport gauges for boost. It's really cold today. It's 30 degrees here today, so bear with me. My warm-up enrichment, and I'll get into that later on, the details on that, but basically warm-up enrichment is just the software's way of adding fuel, or the amount of fuel. So if you run like ethanol or whatever in cold weather, alcohol, it's tough to start. So, and we only have 91 octane here, so sometimes in the winter I'll run 91 just to make it a little easier on starting when it's 20 degrees outside or whatever. In the summer I run E50, which we can get here. It's kind of a blend of ethanol and 91 octane. So okay, so everything started up. You're gonna get a check engine light, ABS light, and brake light most likely, and your traction control is gonna blink. So that's just kind of part of having a standalone ECU. All your power and everything will work. All your AC, heat, heated seats, the snow button, traction control, all that stuff is gonna work. So, all right, bear with me because this is on my phone. So here's my XP box. And when I record the tutorials, I'm gonna use some type of screen capture, and I'll do it from my desk downstairs, so it's in really good quality. But I know this says beta The 2.5 Tuner Studio software just came out. There's some really nice features in it. This is the last version that I was testing out right before. So you open Tuner Studio and you go to File and you go to Open Project. And this has all the MS1, MS2, MS3, MS, all that. All you'll have to worry about is MS3, which is the example project, and you load that file, say select. And as long as your USB and everything's online, you'll be ready to go. You can customize gauges. So right now you can see my coolant temp's already warmed up. It's at 152. My target AFR. This car pretty much likes anywhere a little lower than 14.7, which is Stoich. You want maybe a little richer, so maybe like 13. Air temp is 65. This is your duty cycle and injectors, your map. A lot of features. So anyway, once you get everything set, and I'll go into details on that later on, the best part of this software is this button right here. Start auto tune and data log, start logging. Those are the two best things in the world. So basically what happens is I say start auto tune. You'll have your target AFR maps that you've already created for when you get into boost and all your RPM bands. The thing about it is, if you look down here, it'll say like cells, it's constantly filtering the records. So, and it gives you kind of a graph, and you can look at a 3D view. So if I step on it, it'll make those changes based on the weather or weather permitting. So if it's cold, it'll add fuel. If it's warmer, it'll maybe take some fuel out to try to always meet your targets. And then of course you want to make sure you don't go lean on your wideband, and you just kind of data log that, and your data log will give you what your the duty cycle of your injectors. Are you maxing out your injectors? Are you lean in fourth gear at 8 pounds of boost? Are you, I mean, it gives you tons and tons, and too much information, to be honest. The hardest part was kind of filtering out all the stuff that wasn't of importance until later on. I haven't messed with like launch control or anything like that. I may get into it this year. But the nice thing about being able to have that auto tune is you don't have to take it to a tuner shop. Once you get everything kind of set in stone, you can run 91 or 93 octane or a E30 or a E10 or racing fuel and kind of drive around on it and get it kind of all squared away. Send it to the ECU and you're ready to go. So that's cool. And then this new one for cold weather climate, the warm-up enrichment, also has a new auto tune feature. So when it's really cold outside, like 19 degrees, the car's kind of hard on starting, I hit that auto tune and it starts making suggested methods. So this is really cold weather, so it adds that much more fuel. And then when it's warmed up on the coolant, it adds less fuel when it tries to start. Warm weather or when the car's already warmed up, don't even have to worry about it. But it's a really nice feature. I used to have to manually set all those numbers. It sucked. Here's some kind of what the gauge bars and stuff can look like. Here's the one I created, like kind of a carbon fiber look in the background, kind of shows your knock sensor, ignition. I mean, it's unlimited how you want to customize that. Once you kind of set everything up for the first time, I'm not going to go into all that in here, but like your engine, what it is, and sequential settings, speed density, how many cylinders the car uses. Is it, you know, you can see your ejector size here. It'd be like 525 cc for mine. It's a 3 liter, so a lot of that stuff's set by default in there. So you pick 2JZ, it shows the firing order 153624. So when I create that tutorial, I'm going to base it off the 2J, and I'm just going to go through every menu item, what it does, and I'm not going to make a long video. I'm going to make lots of short videos on just each little setting throughout the cluster. So anyway, that in a nutshell is what it is. And then you can look at like your data log files. So I'll show you what Megalog Viewer looks like. I did pay for the pro version of both Tuner Studio and Megalog Viewer, and you get unlimited free upgrades of it, and the community is really awesome. So for some god unknown reason, I'm the first one with VVTI that's added any value to that community, but I don't think this one had any logs. Let me close out of that. Yeah, here we go. This was from logging earlier today. So down here, you can customize your graphs to show just boost only, or map, or RPM, AFR. It'll show you like in 6,200 RPMs. My injectors kind of max out at 12 pounds of boost on 91 octane. So it's good feedback. And then the weather changes and stuff, you can kind of compare all the time. So you're constantly comparing, kind of like OCD with tuner software, but you can do it all yourself. You don't have to pay a tuner and stuff to mess with it all the time once you get it all set up. The other thing too, oh yeah, you can look at different types. You can look at it in a scatter plot view, which is helpful sometimes when you're trying to see kind of your band. So you can see how mine got all smoothed out. And finally, that's what you want. Then this is kind of the changes and stuff. You can fast forward through your drive. So if you take a spirited drive, on a back road or whatever, and you get into boost and stuff, and you go home and you can kind of check your street tuning, if you will. Did you max it out? Did you not? So my setup. Okay, so I use a ProFect 2 boost controller. I really don't get into it other than just setting the percentages of what my turbo wants to spool. I never run more than 14 pounds. My injectors are precision. They're 525 injectors. I use the AEM wideband and Pro Sport boost gauge. And that's it for in here. Turn the car off. Then we'll go back out in the garage here. I already mentioned it, precision 525 injectors, precision turbo. I can't remember the model, and then I use a K&N intake filter. The other nice thing, and I don't know if you looked into AEM and stuff, so like when you start doing the diameter of the cold intake or the cold side, and you have to do all the math for AEM to set all that, you really don't have to do that in there. It does all the mathematics for you once you just kind of tell it what you want it to do, and it does like down to the, 1/100th of a decimal changes, or 1/10 of a decimal, and it can constantly do it. So I have a map for winter driving, kind of a map when it's mild temps, and then in the summer when it's real hot, I have a whole nother map for that. This is my daily driver. I drive it 40 miles a day, 45 miles a day, back and forth, about 22 miles to work, and hasn't failed me. I've got about 50,000 miles in boost on this motor. The motor itself has just an upgraded head gasket, so my compression is a little bit lower. And then I have a W55, but I have a Spec 2 Plus clutch and pressure plate, and the throwout bearing was replaced. I do not have a different like slave master cylinder or anything like that. The ABS and stuff was relocated over there to make room for the bigger turbo, and my battery is relocated to the trunk. And that really, in a nutshell, timing belt is still the stock timing belt. I have a Gates timing belt. I just haven't had time to rip it all apart and put the new timing belt on and set all that. That's the other thing about Tuner Studio that's nice, is setting the timing is really not difficult. You can advance timing pretty easy and allowing you to run more boost. Sounds like for this setup though, you have a pretty low expectation of 4 pounds, so I think you're gonna be okay. The one thing that I did add that you're gonna have to add is the GM IAT sensor, which you can see is right here, and it's mounted into this bung and then welded in. The reason you want to use that and scrap your math is because you're going to get better readings and calibration in that software than you ever will with the Toyota stuff. So just move away from it. Just move to I think that sensor literally is like $20, and then you got the labor to put it in, and then the pin connector, if I recall, yeah, you'll have to solder in the wires onto this sensor, the hot wire, and then you can tell right on the logging studio if you did it right, because it'll start climbing in temperature. But that will help, because if you ever added like methanol injection, which I'm getting ready to do here this weekend, or at least this winter as a project, you would mount your meth injection right before the IAT sensor, and then your inlet temps for the meth injection, and it would actually read from there instead of trying to go from past there to the throttle body and immediately in. It would, your inlet temperatures would be cold, but it wouldn't make the adjustment. So that's where you would tap in right there. So that's a lot of information, but feel free to ask me any questions. And then we're going to set up like the first tutorial on Tuner Studio. You can always download the free version and then just give me feedback. Let me know if it was confusing. I'll talk a lot slower on the tutorials because I'm a fast talker, and it should be pretty good. So I was not happy with all this at first until it all kind of came together. But that's what you get for being a pioneer, I guess. So, but now I'm thrilled with it because I've used AEM. I've used quite a few of the other, standard standalones, and I never really liked them. So this one I do like because I have all the control and I don't have to pay somebody to help me with it. Later.